Hello class, today we're going to be covering Chapter 4, Working with Gradients, and advanced texturing tools such as the Art Deco tool and the Spray tool. You'll notice here in the background I have Flash opened already, and I've opened up what the completed file looks like for this particular chapter. I will be taking you through the different steps, much like I do in the classroom, so we'll break it down into small pieces. However, I'm not going to be using this particular data file to get started. I'll be helping you create all of these shapes, each one individually, so that way you have a great picture and understanding of how to create these backgrounds, not simply just using the library that we have located to the far right side here. So to get started, I'm going to make my window just a little bit smaller to make sure that you can see all my tools located. On the far right side, so you can see which tools I've selected. I'm going to start out by going to File, New, and ActionScript 3.0 file will be great. So we've got a blank file located here. And so the first thing that I'm going to do to start creating that first section of the caterpillar is to go to our oval tool. So I'm going to choose the oval tool, and I would like to make sure that I have a gradient selected. So in clicking on the fill color, the paint bucket at the bottom, choose one of the gradient radials that you would like to be as part of the center of your circle. And then if you hold down the Shift key while dragging your shape, it'll create you a shape about yo big. Make this back into the scene area here. And I would like to do a little modification to it using the Gradient Transform tool. So this is located as the third icon down on the far right side. Underneath the Free Transform tool is where the Gradient Transform tool is located. The Gradient Transform tool will only actually work if you've already applied a gradient to your object. Okay, so we'll turn this on, and the idea here is that you can change the emphasis as to where the color or the shading is going to be impacting your object. You can make it longer or wider or smaller and scale it down depending on, again, the emphasis of it. If this were a linear gradient, we might want to do a rotation of this, changing the direction of the linear gradient. It's less effective with a radial gradient. Okay. If you are happy with your colors that you have selected here, let's double click on or select our object. So go back to our selection arrow. Sorry about that menu there. So with the object selected, we're either going to press the F8 key, or you can also go to the Modify, Convert to Symbol. The new Convert to Symbol menu comes up. We'll name this as GFX because it will be of graphic type, and we'll call this one Gradient. Make sure your type is chosen to gradient, and your registration tool, I'm going to leave it as the center because that is where the pivot point is going to be of the section of my caterpillar, so we're going to leave it in the center there. And press the OK button, and you'll see now in the library there's the new object located there, and this has now been converted over to the symbol object with the blue box surrounding it. Okay? Alright, so the next one that we're going to do, we want to create ourselves another circle. However, inside of this one, we want to create ourselves a shape that we can then use our spray brush tool to use. So I'm going to first create the shape that I'm going to spray, and then we'll go about creating the circle for us to spray it inside of. Okay, so using a simple tool such as the pencil or the paintbrush. Remember, if you use the paintbrush, you're changing the fill color, and if you're using the pencil, you're changing the stroke color. Okay, so pick a color that's going to be satisfactory for you. I, in this case, have chosen the paintbrush, so at the bottom is where I can choose the brush size. Okay, if you want to change the stroke type with the paintbrush, you certainly can do so through there. And this isn't going to be full encompassing of the object. We're actually just going to draw ourselves something that looks like a star or a flower, something that you would like to see kind of sprayed out inside of your caterpillar. Okay, so a simple little shape such as this. Okay, I'm going to select all of this and convert it to a symbol. Okay, so I'm going to press either the F8 key or go to Modify, Convert to Symbol, either way. And this one's going to be, again, a graphic, so it's GFX. And this is what we'll call a star, though it doesn't really resemble one. It is a star. And so there we've got it converted over. Now I don't need the star located here in the main timeline. Again, we are still in scene 1, so I'm actually going to have this object in particular selected and delete it or remove it so it's no longer sitting on the stage. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is go to Insert a New Symbol. Okay, this one's going to be the GFX Star Spray. It's going to be the second section of our caterpillar, and it will be of a graphic type, and press OK. Now the idea here is we're actually going to spray our star all over the area, and then we're going to create the shape of our caterpillar and do a mask of it. So only the part that's going to be inside the circle will actually be effective. So we will give that a try right now. So we are inside of our graphic star spray. So this is going to be part of the caterpillar. You'll see that my layers are still set to 1. I'm actually going to increase the layer. This top layer is what we're going to call star. The bottom layer is what we're going to call caterpillar. Okay. So on the caterpillar layer, I'm going to create myself a rectangle tool. Okay. And of the rectangle tool, I would like to create myself a fill color other than the same color as the star. So I'm going to choose, you'd think I was colorblind, this periwinkle of color sorts. I want to make sure that I'm on the caterpillar layer. If you're worried that you might start working on the star, you certainly can lock out the star layer. Basically, I'm just going to color in the background here. Okay, so that's the color that I'm going to spray on top of. Next, I'm going to unlock the star layer, and you can lock out the caterpillar layer. Make sure you are working on the star layer. And we are going to use the paintbrush spray. So the paintbrush spray is underneath the paintbrush tool. So you're going to have to click on the little arrow next to the paintbrush, so that way the submenu pops up, and we'll select the paintbrush tool from here. Now before we start spraying, we must go into the properties for the paintbrush spray tool. And you'll see when you first open this up that there's a default shape selected, and it's actually a black square. Okay, so we want to make sure we edit that black square by clicking on the Edit button. And in this case, we want to use not the spray, but the actual graphic star. Okay, so we'll spray this. And then when it comes to the spraying amount, you'll see that you've got some choices inside of here in terms of the scale, the width that you would like to spray for it. So you can change this while we are spraying, or after we sprayed a little bit, you can change those numbers here. If you'd like your stars to come in different sizes, you certainly might want to choose the random scaling of them, and then the random rotation of the object as you spray. Now you'll see here the intensity of a single little spray is completely dependent on the pressure that I have applied to the button. They're also very close to one another, so I'm going to increase the scaling of them. See if that makes a difference as to what it is that I'm looking for. Okay, you see how the minor difference is here? So by setting the scale width and height much higher, it clusters them much more. And by setting them much smaller, 5 is a tad bit too small, it doesn't cluster them as much. Okay, so you can kind of see how there's just slight little clicks taking place here to overall apply the spray that we're looking for. All right, I'm going to clean up my area now that I've played around with it a little bit. Delete all the objects on there. You'll notice that the blue box has not actually been deleted because, again, it was on the caterpillar layer and it's been locked out. So now that I have my spray tool set up pretty much the way I would like it to work in terms of the scaling and the size and the randomness of it, and this is also going to be the brush area in terms of the amount of space that your spraying will actually cover. My brush will cover 92 pixels both directions. Okay, so we're just going to kind of spray a few of these out here, cluster them a little bit but not too much, and you'll see that I'm not really spraying any over here. It really doesn't make a difference because the size of my caterpillar is going to be clustered right here when I draw my circle, and that's the area in which I'm going to mask. So once you figured out your spray and you've got it laid out there, go back to my selection arrow. I'm going to make sure that my star layer is selected and press the Insert New Layer button so the new layer gets added to the top. I'll rename layer 3 to be Mask. Now the mask, the way this works is you choose a shape. The color of the mask really is irrelevant because you don't ever see the mask itself. You only see the items that are directly underneath the mask. So in this case, to match the rest of my caterpillar, which are ovals, I'm going to make sure I have the oval tool selected. And to avoid any kind of confusion, I don't want to really create another oval of the same blue color. So I'm going to choose a different color. And again, the hideousness of the color that I've selected is really irrelevant because you won't actually see this mask color. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and create myself a circle that's approximately the same size as the circle that I created for the other part of it. And because my mask is on its own layer up here, I can pick this up and move it around, and there's no punch out taking place because it's on its own layer. So give that a try. Once you've done all that, and feel free to simply pause this video as you try to accomplish this task right here. You'll see if I turn off these layers, so nothing is visible. When I turn on the mask, you'll see it's just the circle on top. The stars are just splattered there, and the caterpillar background color is located there. Okay? The order of these 3 layers is very, very important. The mask has to be on the top layer, the star is the middle, and then if you apply a background color, it needs to be done on the bottom layer. It certainly isn't required for this task to work. I'm going to right-click on the mask layer and click Mask, and you'll see now it's going to pick up that color. That's all that's going to show through there. Okay, unfortunately this huge blue box right here is also going to show, and so I can't mask the caterpillar underneath the star layer. However, I can click and drag on this caterpillar layer, and you'll see this black line with a little circle on the left hand side up here. When you drag it up ever so slightly, it's going to appear just underneath the mask itself. All layers must be locked for a mask to work. Okay, so initially when you do it, it looks somewhat like this, and as soon as you lock out that bottom layer, this now becomes the masked object. The star and the background color are all a child of the mask layer, and this is how it appears. So when you're all done, leave all 3 layers locked just as you see them. Go back to scene 1, and here at layer 1 is where we have the first of the objects. So I'm just going to add this from the library to the same frame. There's no animations taking place at this time, and drag this to being a part of my caterpillar. I can always go into my free transform tool. Remember, it won't be showing right now because the last used tool was the gradient transform tool. So click on the free transform tool, select the object that we just created, and if you again hold down the Shift key, it'll kind of decrease the size of it proportionately without you having to scale or squish it together. So that is part 2 of our caterpillar. Let's save the file at this point. And there we go. We'll go on to creating the other parts. In order to do so, I need to probably start making my stage just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to click inside this gray area here, make sure my property inspector is showing, and I'm going to edit the size of my screen to something much, much larger in terms of the width. So let's go with 1000 pixels. I don't need to change the height of it at all, but then I've added a lot more space for me to work with at this point.